Hello and welcome to Barely Tactical. I'm Sean and we have yet another faction focus. This week we're looking at the Darwi, the dwarves. I quite like these because they're a very ranged heavy army, which you will see. Normal disclaimers, you know, I'm not a Warhammer expert. I might get things wrong. I might get things about the lore wrong. Please do feel free to let me know in the comments below and I will try to edit things as best as I can. We will be having a Let's Play over on Twitch of the next faction focus, so if you want to see what's coming up, do go check that out as well. I think that's enough rambling really, isn't it? Let's crack on with the video. So first of the dwarves that you can pick is Thorgrim Grudgebearer. He comes with plus 20 diplomatic relations with dwarves, a construction cost of minus 25% for military recruitment buildings, upkeep minus 15% for longbeards and hammerers, recruit rank plus 3 for hammerers, leadership aura size plus 75%, that's just him, leadership aura effect, oh my god, plus 8 for just him as well. He starts with a grudge thrower unit, which is quite useful. He's got pretty much the same playthrough from what I can tell as Brindle, but there is a couple of little differences. The thing I would say is, out of the two, I think Brindle is the easier start because there are certain buffs that I'll explain with him. And Thorgrim, whilst he's not bad, kind of requires a bit more knowledge to get the best out of him. So, the next up is Brindle, the white dwarf. He comes with an evasion chance of plus 60% when using the underway. That's for all characters. Weapon strength of plus 20% when fighting elves. He can call upon the ancestor gods, which we will cover in a second. Reinforcement range of plus 50% in his army, and leadership of plus 10 again in his army. He starts out with Iron Drakes, which are a really good unit. The Living Ancestor is the little thing that he has, which is an event that triggers for him after a set amount of turns. This will give you 4 options, which all have a different buff that lasts 25 turns. Once the 25 turns are up, it re-triggers and you go all over again. These buffs only apply to either the region Brindle is in, or his army, or there is one that applies to research, which is quite useful. Now, he has immediate enemies of pretty much every single orc, except Grom, like Thorgrim does as well. He's in a very similar position because obviously they start in the same position. So you have Grimgor, Azag, potentially Wurzag, and also some Skaven in the south. He's again a very easy start, a very good learning one, which I will probably do a Let's Play on at some point, and we'll have a deeper focus on Brindle and his little event thing in a Lord focus video at some point in the future. But that's enough on the white dwarf. Next is Bellagar Ironhammer. Right, he has an upkeep of plus 50% until Carrick 8 Peaks is recaptured, a leadership of plus 10 when laying siege. He starts with Clan and Grund Ancestor Heroes, a unique building chain at Carrick 8 Peaks. He has the attribute Siege Attacker, and he has the attribute Vanguard Deployment during underway battles. That's for all armies faction-wide, which is quite nice. A leadership of plus 10 when fighting Greenskins and Skaven, and that's just his army. His major initial enemy is going to be Ikitclaw, who's directly to your west. He's going to cause a problem if you don't deal with him relatively quick. Now, Bellagar is a much more difficult start because this plus 50% upkeep. Dwarven units aren't cheap, so having half of the cost added on is going to be really problematic. I don't recommend this one for beginners. I tried it on easy for 30 turns, almost got to the Carrick 8 Peaks, so you can do it. It just takes a lot of fiddling. Now, next boy. So last, but by no means least, Ungrim Iron Fist. His suitable climate is frozen. He has a construction cost of minus 75% for Slayer buildings, a recruitment cost of minus 50% for Slayer units, a speed plus 10 for infantry units, upkeep minus 25% for Slayer units in the Lord's army, a melee attack of plus 10 for Slayer units in the Lord's army, passive ability Journey's End for Slayer units in the Lord's army. I'll give you a thumbs up if you can guess what unit Thorgrim likes. The fact he's called the Slayer King. So he has 1 unit of Slayers and 1 unit of Giant Slayers, and also has some Thunderers in his starting army, which is pretty damn nice. His instant enemies are Azag and the Vampire Counts, which you're almost kind of surrounded by them. So yeah, but early game Dwarf units versus early game Orcs and early game Vampire Counts, you're probably going to have a relatively okay time fighting them straight off the bat. A lot of people aren't sold on Slayer units versus other units for a front line or whatever in a Dwarven army, but with Thorgrim, there's kind of no reason not to use them, with the whole reduction in cost and buff in attack and all the stuff and the things. I'm going to stop rambling about Thorgrim now and move on to our next section. So, the Great Book of Grudges, and not the channel, even though he is a bloody legend. The dwarves have a record of all grievances caused against them in the Damaz Kron, the Book of Grudges. When the dwarves suffer a loss, this is recorded in the book to be avenged later on. So this is something that's very unique to the dwarves and really important for their campaign. You will get various grudges popping up as you lose settlements or battles, or even it can come up as a random event. It just gives you a grudge to fulfill. And basically you will get as various rewards. I think they're pretty much always just treasury and oath gold rewards. But if you don't complete these tasks within a certain amount of time, you have a little bar at the top which starts to fill up, which then affects your public order, so that you then start getting revolts and things like that because you've not dealt with your grudges quick enough, which is a nice handy little spin on the campaign. So, the Forge. Dwarves combined the winds of magic to stone or metal. Metal? Feckin' hell. With this talent, they use oath gold and trade resources to make magical weapons, armor, talismans, and items to give a buff in battle. So, it's kind of self-explanatory. It's an area which you can make weapons, armor, talismans, and other various items with the oath gold and trade resources that you will generate from your cities and quests and carrying out grudges and all that stuff, which can be quite useful, you know, giving a nice tiny little edge to your units. So, Oath Gold. Oath Gold is a currency that is unique to the dwarves. They use it for forging the magical items, and it's obtained through quite a few different means. You get quests that will pop up and they'll reward you with it. You get your grudges, which will reward you with it as well when you complete them. You also get buildings that produce it. There's even skills that lords have that will produce a certain amount per turn. So it's a relatively easy source of income to come by, especially for what its purpose is. So, Dwarven Economy. Now, the economy game with the dwarves is pretty damn strong. There's not really much to complain about. You get plenty of buildings which generate a fair amount of gold, and there is a fair whack of tech as well in the tech tree that will boost several different areas of the industry tabs and other buildings. You also get abilities in lords that will help boost it. The tax rate for the commandments is pretty damn good as well, so you're not going to have a hard time amassing a decent amount of gold to pay for the expensive dwarven units. Thank God. Now, what's next? So the tech tree. Now, the dwarves have a very straightforward one. There's only one tech that is actually locked behind anything, which is quite a late game technology called rat poison, locked behind 10,000 gold. So it's quite hefty to get, but you're not going to be worrying about that for quite some time. Everything else is nice and straightforward. You don't need certain buildings. You don't need to, you know, dance on your head with your pants down or whatever. I don't know. It's all really easy to get to. It's separated quite well. So at the top, you have guild related things. So the top half of the guild is economy, the bottom half is diplomacy, and then the second half of the tree is all to do with your military. So it's really easy to navigate and really easy just to understand and get straight into. So something else the dwarves have access to is a stance known as the Underway. This allows them to go underground and traverse impassable terrain really quick. Now, whilst it's not a unique thing, the Orcs have it, the Skaven have it, and Durthu has it. Not sure if Orion has it for the Wood Elves. This is still a damn useful thing to have as the dwarves, and I end up using it in the campaign an awful lot just to try and get around and sort of pincer the enemy as fast as I possibly can. So the battle tactics for the dwarves, it's actually relatively straightforward for the dwarves. They're pretty ranged and artillery heavy. They've got some good defensive units to hold the front line while you maneuver your troops around and cause ridiculous damage from behind or at the flanks or whatever. So your early game, you're going to be having dwarf warriors, which everyone, I think everyone except the Slayer King starts out with. You then have Quarrelers, who are your crossbow units, and Grudge Throwers. They're available at tier 2 generally, and they give some really good firepower. Now, there's no point in replacing the Dwarven Warriors, in my opinion, until very late game when you can have Iron Breakers, because, you know, they're a brilliant unit, and they have the nice little ranged attack, kinda like the Loven Sea Guard, although let's face it, they're dwarves, so they're going to be cooler. You'd replace your Grudge Throwers with either flame cannons or organ guns. Now, there's a lot of argument over which is better, but both will make your enemy's infantry just vanish. It's like pressing a delete button. One's with fire and one's not with fire. You know, yeah. You also have Iron Drakes, which are a very good unit if you position them well, and Thunderers. Again, they're armor piercing, so they're very useful against later armies, but they do need more positioning than something like Quarrelers, so they can be a bit fiddly. Heroes, Engineers can be very useful for boosting up your ranged attack, reload rate and ammo capacity. And then you also have Gotrek and Felix that you can recruit, which I think is once you've got a pub. I mean, he's voiced by Brian Blessed, for God's sake. Why wouldn't you want that? And so that wraps up this week's video. Thank you for hanging out with me, guys. It's been amazing making these, and I really, really love making them, and I love the fact that people seem to be liking them. So please feel free to subscribe and leave a like or dislike or whatever, you know, or comment. You know, it all helps massively. There will be some content coming up, hopefully within the next month, on the Wood Elf DLC that's coming out. It will be early access because I'm a verified content creator for Total War, so I'll be looking forward to that. My overview of the dwarves is I love them. They're ranged heavy, so I'm always going to have a soft spot for them. I can't really say more than that. If you want to catch the next Faction Focus before it comes up on YouTube, check out my Twitch channel, which will be below, or you can catch my Twitter or join the Discord. You know, all the things that everyone has and the stuff like that. So again, thank you all, and I will catch you next time, you glorious gits.